Another day, another dollar. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Chris Renne Show, episode number 37. If you haven't yet, take a look at our new show art for Pints at the Round Table and the Chris Renne Show on our social media page at mbasementprod and at my personal account, Chris Renne5 on Instagram and Chris_Renne on Twitter. Now that that's out of the way right now, I want to get started. There's a problem in Tinseltown. The Lakers are in shambles. The Lakers are in trouble. They're 29-32 on the outside looking into the playoffs, and they're 3 games back of the Spurs. If they do get the 8th seed, it's almost a guarantee that they're getting bounced early. They've been dealing with issues, whether it be Lonzo's current injury or LeBron's groinal injury. There's a mix of veterans and youth, and there's a couple problems I think we need to highlight as we go through it. But to start, LeBron's expectations. He himself said the goal in LA is to win a championship. That's a lofty expectation, but being the best basketball player in the world for the last decade, you come with lofty expectations. Now, the Lakers are struggling, and there's a multitude of reasons. One being, it seems like the young players are often distracted easily. LeBron was quoted recently saying the playoff push is not a distraction. But when you go 0 for 3 in your last games against the Hawks, your last 3 road games against the Hawks, the Grizzlies, and the Pelicans, one of which doesn't even have their best player playing to the full potential. The other has been terrible, and the Grizzlies got rid of their second best player. Going 0-3 in those games is a sign of trouble to come. They got smoked by the 76ers. They beat the Celtics. They got smoked by the Pacers. They lost to the Warriors by 14, and that's after beating the Clippers by 3. The Lakers are not a good basketball team right now, and it is not due to talent. Their roster is a really deep mix of young veterans, young and old. It starts at the top with LeBron. Then you go through and you get to the second tier of players, whether it be Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball. And then you have JaVale McGee, Tyson Chandler, veteran bigs. You pick up Mike Muscala, a veteran, Reggie Bullock, a veteran. You have Rondo, a veteran, a guy who's been there before. You got guys who have been there and done that. And they're not mixing as good as they thought. I was watching a sports talk radio show this week, and Chris Mannix was on it as a guest. Chris Mannix said, the Lakers are a bunch of young dudes and a band of mercenaries. No one knows who's going to be there next year, and no one knows who's going to be there beyond the future. That includes the young core. Recently on my show, I talked about the Anthony Davis trade rumors. Those really affected the young players, but now that those are gone, there should be no distractions. And the goal of this team should be to win a championship. But that leads me to the first problem I want to discuss. And I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but I feel it holds so much truth behind it. And that's the millennial problem. Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart. The young players on this team have personalities that want to be stars. Whether it's being seen in the fashion before the game, getting into Twitter beefs with each other. There is a bunch of stuff going on where you've got the big baller brand. You've got all these distractions in their own lives that take away from what matters most, and that's being a hooper. You hear about Brandon Ingram and his dating strippers. You hear about the NDAs he makes women sign. He hasn't got to the point where he's earned non-disclosure agreements. Brandon Ingram's a decent player, but he has the mindset. He wants to be a star. Lonzo Ball wants to be the star. Kyle Kuzma wants to be the center of attention. Even guys at the end of the bench like Moritz Wagner are on Twitter tweeting at each other, laughing and stuff. And now I'm not saying it's not time to have fun. You can't have fun. But I'm saying when you're 3 games back from the playoffs and the playoffs are an expectation, the social media needs to take a backseat and need to start becoming a hooper all the time. That's just plain facts. The veterans, Lance Stevenson, KCP, they need to expect more from these young kids. And they can't let these young kids get complacent with how they've played. LeBron's been a hypocrite. On the defense end, he's been lazy. He can't ask these young guys to be great at defense if he's not trying to be great at defense. Now LeBron's thinking he's going to be in there. He needs to be there at the end. But right now, there is no end. The millennial problem is an overweighing and an overlying theme of the NBA itself. Everyone in the league wants to be a star, and everyone in the league expects star treatment. But when you want to be a champion, that means doing what's best for the team. You watch the Warriors play basketball, they have 4 superstars. But at the end of the day, come playoff time, it's about winning. You look at the Rockets. James Harden had that 30 points per game streak. But in the playoffs last year, he could have done that, but he deferred to Chris Paul in moments because he knew it was better for the team. He trusted P.J. Tucker. He trusted his teammates to come up big when it mattered. And right now, with this hero ball they're playing, they're looking like an intramural team that comes together with a lot of talent, but they don't win because guess what? Everyone's out there trying to get buckets and make their name well known. And I understand wanting to become a star, but you want to know the fastest way to stardom in America? Winning a championship. Once you're a champion, you have 6 months of publicity, free publicity from every major sporting news outlet. You get your parade. You get to put your personality on display. And once you start putting that effort in and becoming a champion, you'll realize that winning is the most important part to becoming the best. There's a reason Zion Williamson's going to shine one of the biggest shoe deals of any athlete getting drafted, and that's because the dude is a winner. There's a reason LeBron signed one out of high school, and that's because he beat everyone that was in front of him. There's a reason he signed a $1 billion contract, and that's because he won titles. Dwayne Wade with leaning. He's a champion. He gets a signature shoe. That's just the way it is. The fastest way to greatness is being a champion. So the next topic of discussion, the next problem, is one I mentioned previously. The band of mercenaries. There's a lot of veterans on one-year deals. JaVale McGee, Tyson Chandler, Rajon Rondo, Lance Stevenson are 4 that I noticed right away. These 4 players all have experience making deep postseason runs. Tyson Chandler was on the Mavericks team that beat LeBron. Rajon Rondo was on teams that beat LeBron in the conference finals. JaVale McGee was on the last 2 Warriors championship teams that beat LeBron. And Lance Stevenson battled LeBron more times than not. These guys are on one-year deals, so it is hard to commit. Being non-committal is a bad thing when you're in a team that has championship expectations. And I know at the beginning of the year, they weren't expecting a championship in the first place, but you have LeBron James, and LeBron James' clock's ticking. So that's why you brought in these veterans. You brought in these veterans to win now and teach these young guys how to win. But with the millennial problem and the terrible attitude of this mercenary mindset, it's having a negative impact on this team chemistry, and it has a negative impact on these players bringing it every night. The trade talks were affecting it. I will give it to you, but the trade talks are over. It is time to nut up and start playing basketball if you want to be great. I feel bad for LeBron, and I shouldn't. I never thought I'd say those words since he left Cleveland, but I do. I do. You know, the last thing, Luke Walton's not the guy. Luke Walton can't manage minutes. Luke Walton's not a good basketball coach, and I feel bad saying it, but it's just the truth. Luke Walton will not have a job at the end of the year, whether they make the playoffs or not. I don't think a lot of these guys will be in LA next year because guess what? You have LeBron James, and his window's closing, and you need to win now. And championships are the Lakers' way, and that's what matters. These young guys have a golden opportunity in front of them, but they just don't want to conform to the idea of becoming a champion. That's my Lakers talk. Trouble in Tinseltown. Trouble in La La Land. That was a good movie. You know, I'm going to stick with the NBA and the entitlement that NBA players come with. My next topic of conversation is going to be Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the modern-day NBA free agent. There was talks around the league that the player had all the power, but that's not true. There's two players in the league who hold all the cards when it comes to money and the landscape of the league. That's Kevin Durant, and that is LeBron James. Anthony Davis tried playing a hardball card on the Pelicans and the Lakers, and it backfired, and it made Rich Paul look bad, and it embarrassed LeBron James and his Clutch Sports agency. And it embarrassed Anthony Davis and made him look like a villain, and he didn't like that. That's a modern-day NBA player. They think they have it all, and they think they deserve everything. But I remember talking to one of my friends last week about this same topic of conversation. The NBA player, the top-tier NBA player plays 15, 16 years of great basketball. Then there's 3 more years or so of them being in their legend status, and everyone's like, oh, they just get a free pass because they used to be good. You know, that's where Dwayne Wade's at. That's where Paul Pierce was. That's what Dirk's doing right now. And the list goes on. Everyone knows what I'm talking about if they know basketball. Well, there's landscape-changing players. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and they're the once-in-a-generation players. Anthony Davis is one of those players, but not one of those players, if you know what I mean. He's close. He's a great player, but he's never won anything, and his talent doesn't translate to victories. When LeBron gets there, the team improves. This is the first time it hasn't with the Lakers. So, moving on to the modern NBA free agent. Kyrie Irving is going to be a free agent, as well as Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is an enigma in the league because no matter how much he wins in Golden State, no one's ever going to credit him the amount he deserves for these victories. I'm in that boat. Kevin Durant can win 5 titles at Golden State, and I still will think less of him than LeBron, who seemingly did more to get his rings than Kevin Durant did. Kevin Durant joined an already formed championship team, and that's why people discredit his accomplishments. Kevin Durant's the second best player in the world, and arguably the number 1 player in some people's eyes. Not mine, but he's very close, and I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be pretty obvious that he is now the number 1 player in the world. This is where the landscape-changing ability comes into play, because wherever Kevin Durant goes, they're going to win at least 50 games next year. And if you give him a swingman or a wingman, he will win 55 to 60 games. Now, another free agent, another star, another more flaky dude, Kyrie Irving. left the Cavs because he wanted his own team. Realized, well, it's hard to do it by myself. It's hard to be the leader. It's hard to do this on my own. He was talking to Kevin Durant at the All-Star Weekend, and it led to a lot of speculation about what they were talking about. Well, in October, Kevin Durant said about free agency, nobody can recruit me. Well, is that what Kyrie was doing? Is Kyrie telling them where they can go in New York? Was he telling them the good boroughs to live in Manhattan before they go to Madison Square Park and play in the Garden? I don't know. I don't know what they were talking about. Because Kyrie Irving was very defensive about it. He said, I was just talking to a friend. It doesn't matter what it was about. I wanted to talk to my friend, and now y'all are making a big deal about it. And I was just trying to talk to my friend. Well, when you get defensive like that, and when you get defensive like KD does, it leads to more speculation. And the modern NBA free agent has a lot of power. But not many players have the power like a Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is going to go into one of the biggest free agent. He's going to be one of the biggest free agents of all time this fall. Whether he leaves Golden State, stays in Golden State, goes to New York, goes to Los Angeles, goes to the Wizards, a team that is home to him, goes back to Oklahoma City. I don't know. There's plenty of options. And any of it's in the realm of possibility. Because we don't know what's going on in Kevin Durant's head. We just know he wants to be liked. People are starting to accept him as a warrior. People are still going to discredit his accomplishments, though. So, is leaving his best option? As they say, a title in New York's worth 2 titles anywhere else. And the way he can surpass LeBron as one of the best NBA players of all time is winning multiple titles in New York City, a place that hasn't seen a championship in 50 years. And if he gets a friend like Kyrie Irving to go there with him, there's a real chance they can do it. So, moving forward, I don't have much to talk about today. So, the sports history anecdote of the week. I'm just going to give you a real quick, fun sports history anecdote. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I thought it was cool. On this day in 1935, the day I'm recording is February 26th. So on February 26th, 1935, the late, great Babe Ruth was released by the New York Yankees finally. After a long, illustrious career, becoming the home run king and becoming one of the greatest two-way MLB players of all time, and a guy who lives in legend to this day with his heavy bat, his big body, his beer-drinking attitude, his hot dog-eating body, the great Bambino. He was let go, and that just shows that anybody will get too old. And once you're too old in sports, it's over. And like I said, I said the NBA franchises are going to be there a lot longer than these players. They are. The players make the franchises, but the franchises are billion-dollar industries that are going to keep making money regardless of who's on the floor. And yes, who is still one of the most valuable franchises in sports without one of the greatest baseball players ever on it, 80 years or so later? That's right, the New York Yankees, and they're just as valuable to the world as they were back then with inflation. So, continuing forward with baseball and value, I guess. There's another money concept. Nolan Arenado signed for 8 years today, $255 million, which will make him the highest paid position player per year in salary. That's a big deal. Not because Nolan Arenado is getting paid and he's one of my favorite players in the major leagues, but the Bryce Harper sweepstakes are still open. And now that 2 players in 2 small markets have been paid like this, that really opens up for one of the most popular faces in the sport of baseball to get paid big bills. The Bryce Harper sweepstakes are still open, and he is yet to sign. And there is some new stuff that came out in the news yesterday with the Los Angeles Dodgers coming back into play. Now, Bryce Harper wants a long 10-year deal. But the Dodgers want to sign him to a very, very fulfilling short-term deal when it comes to money. The deal the Dodgers would offer would be about 5 years or so, short-term in comparison, worth more than what Nolan Arenado's is making a year. And the Dodgers have some of the deepest pockets, being the second most valuable franchise in the major leagues. The Dodgers are going to try to bring the Brinks truck, convince them to come to a major market, and I think that'll work. But the Phillies hold the offer that Bryce Harper wanted, the 10-year, $300 million one. Now, seeing that Nolan Arenado is going to be making about $35 million a year to play for the Colorado Rockies, I think the Phillies are going to have to boost their offer if they want to convince Bryce Harper. But Bryce Harper has the ability to shift the whole landscape of Major League Baseball. Like I was talking about with NBA free agents, Bryce Harper has that power. A-Rod was on the Herd yesterday with Colin Cowherd, and he was talking about the revenue that Bryce Harper would bring just to the New York Yankees. With their 16 million subscribers paying $7 a month to see the New York Yankees play baseball, if you got 2 million more people to watch, that is $200 million more dollars just from subscribers in television. That's not ticket sales. That's not other aspects. That's just subscribers in television, because people are going to want to watch him play in the local market. He's going to put people in the seats, and he's going to pay for himself, just like the Padres are assuming Manny Machado will do. Just like the Rockies are doing with Nolan Arenado. He's a star. He puts names in the seat. He's a fan favorite. He pays for himself. So the Phillies have the money to do it. The Phillies are one of the wealthier franchises in sports. And the Dodgers definitely have the pockets to give the offer Bryce Harper wants. If I had to make a prediction right now, I think he signs with the Phillies. But the Nationals are still in play with a similar deal to the Phillies. But if the Nationals want him, they're going to have to outbid him and give him that $450 million contract he wanted at the beginning of free agency. Scott Boras has really dicked this free agency for some of his clients, and Bryce Harper's one of them, and they're playing the waiting game. But someone is going to want to pay Bryce Harper because, guess what? Regardless of how you feel about him as a baseball player, the dude is going to make money. Baseball's coming around. Spring training started. That was exciting to see the Indians play on TV for the first time in like 4 or 5 months. It was fun. I was a big fan of watching the spring training game. I watched Tulo hit a jack against the Blue Jays. That was fun. I liked Tulo's interview after the game. Troy Tulowitzki, if you don't know who I'm talking about. He said, they said I couldn't play anymore. That was the team that said I couldn't do it anymore. And he signed with the Yankees, and he hit a jack for him in his first at-bat in spring training against his former team. Talk about a story. Sports write themselves. And that's my favorite part about them. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, grab some water. I'll be back in a second. Keep your ear to your headphones. For all your shipping needs, whether they be parcel, full truckload, less than truckload, air freight, or expedited shipping, go to freightsaver.com and get a quote today. What's up, everybody? I'm back. I had to rehydrate myself for this final segment of the day. But first, my shameless plugging of my social media. Go follow me on Instagram at ChrisRenne5 and on Twitter at Chris_Renne. But if you type in my name, I should pop up. Follow M-Basement Prod, Mom's Basement Production Company, on Facebook. Like them. Follow us on Twitter at MBasementProd and Instagram at the same tag at MBasementProd. I started a new Twitter. It is MB Pints for Pints at the Round Table. Follow us on Instagram at Pints at the Round Table 1. for all things Pints, and give Pints a listen this Friday morning. 9 a.m. is when the show releases. This show will be releasing 9 a.m. Wednesday, so hopefully you enjoy it and are enjoying it so far. It's not going to be a long show. It hasn't been that big of a sporting week in news. So my last topic, NFL draft position. I talked about this once. I've been doing my draft profiles on the Instagram and Basement Prod. It's been a fun thing to do. It's really helped me refine my Photoshop skills. And I'm just giving a little quick strengths and weaknesses about each player. So the first position I'm talking about, and I'm not going to save it for last because I'm not that guy. I'm going to talk about him first. The golden position, the Super Bowl winning position, the position everybody can't seem to get right unless they have Tom Brady. The quarterback. The quarterback's a beautiful position. They're in charge of the game. They touch the ball the most. And they end up being the face of your franchise. Well, I'm going to go through some names and different tiers of quarterbacks in this year's draft, the 2019 NFL Draft. The Combine starts next week, and that's fun. Most of these guys are throwing, which never happens at the Combine because usually you have a surefire 1, 2, or 3. This, you have a top tier, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start at the top. The top 2 quarterbacks are unquestioned and unheralded prospects. Last year, they probably would have been the 5th, 6th, or 7th quarterbacks in the draft. But depending on who you like and what type of quarterback you're looking for, there's 2 types. There is Dwayne Haskins, a traditional mold, a 6'3", 235-pound quarterback. Similar body as Big Ben. Cannon for an arm. Stands in the pocket strongly and goes through progressions well. There's a draft profile of him up on the M-Basement Prod page. I go through his strengths and weaknesses. His strengths are his arm strength, his ability to read through progressions, and his confidence standing in the pocket. His weaknesses are he doesn't utilize his athleticism enough, and sometimes he stands in the pocket too long and a little too lackadaisical with his feet. The other quarterback at the top of the draft is Kyler Murray. He got drafted by the Oakland A's. He's a superior athlete, and he's extremely fast. His biggest issue is he might not measure in at 5'10". There hasn't been many successful quarterbacks in the NFL who have been under 5'10", and there's been very few successful quarterbacks under the height of 6 feet tall. Kyler Murray is a freak athlete. He throws a beautiful ball, and he has a really strong arm. And if you talk to the baseball scouts, they'll say his arm wasn't his strongest aspect. What does that mean for a football? I don't know. I couldn't throw a baseball or a football for my life. So we'll see. Kyler Murray throws a pretty ball. He's tough as nails. He's accurate. But there is a big difference with taking an NFL beating. Where will these guys get taken? Dwayne Haskins is going to go to the New York Giants. Dwayne Haskins is a New Jersey kid, and he fits the mold of a quarterback the Giants are looking for. Now, Kyler Murray can go anywhere from Arizona to I think number 13 in the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are a good fit for him. He's fun. He fits the Miami way, the way Miami would want to play. Fun, explosive, electrifying, very reflective of the city. I think both quarterbacks have a lot more potential than a lot of people are saying. Now, they're not as good as the quarterbacks in the last draft, and I don't think they have the ceilings of a Sam Darnold or a Josh Allen. But I do think right now Dwayne Haskins is a more accurate quarterback than Josh Allen, and I think Kyler Murray is a more refined quarterback than Sam Darnold was. They just don't have the ceilings of the other ones from last year. So now that I've talked about the top 2, I'm going to move to the middle tier. And these quarterbacks might be lesser known to a casual fan, but I'll give you a little brief history. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is Daniel Jones. He played at Duke. He was a good quarterback in college, not a great quarterback. He's an accurate thrower, doesn't have an explosive arm, and needs to start throwing a little more with anticipation if he's going to play at the next level. At the Senior Bowl, his biggest problem was when he threw downfield, the ball would float. In the NFL, if the ball floats, it's going to lead to a lot of incompletions and a lot of interceptions. This moves me on to the next one. Drew Lock from the St. Louis area, former five-star recruit as a quarterback, extremely talented from an arm strength standpoint, but extremely inconsistent with his accuracy, his touch, and his intermediate throws. Drew Lock's going to be electric at his pro day, and he's going to show off arm strength like no other quarterback in the class. Only that of Dwayne Haskins, I think, can match him. Drew Lock had some of the highest highs in college football and lowest lows over his 4-year career at Missouri. And I'm really excited to see how he goes through the draft process because I've always been a Drew Lock fan. And I've always liked watching him play at Missouri. And I think he's been there for some upsets. And he's led one of the more prolific offenses over his career. Drew Lock's a fun prospect to watch. He's got all the intangibles. He's got all the tangibles, but it's some of the intangible stuff that you can't teach that might lead to him falling. A lot of people are projecting him in the first round now due to that. And he's taken Daniel Jones' place as the third quarterback on a lot of people's prospect list. The next quarterback I'll be talking about is Will Grier, the former Mountaineer. He had a nice beard last season and almost beat Oklahoma. Came up a little short, but that's okay. Will Grier had a really solid college career. It started at Florida, but then he ran into the PED problem. And then the coaching staff changed, and he was out of favor there by that coaching staff, so he decided to leave, moved to West Virginia, met a girl, got married, got her pregnant, became a dad, became a quarterback for the Mountaineers, was a 2-year starter, and was an extremely good college quarterback. His major weakness, though, is his arm strength at the top end. He doesn't have the arm strength of a Haskins, a Murray, or a Locke, but he has a little bit more than Daniel Jones. Will Grier is an interesting prospect because he has that prototypical backup makeup where he doesn't have all the talent to be a starter, but from a football IQ standpoint and a fundamental standpoint, he can very much step in and win a game or two for you. He reminds me a lot of Mike Glennon, Chase Daniel, and so on and so forth. Those consummate professionals that just sit back there, come in, win a game if you need them to. Matt Flynn's another example. Okay, there we go. Mike Glennon was a bad example, but I was talking more role than talent comparison. The last middle-tier quarterback is NC State's quarterback Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley is a very tall, lengthy-looking dude with a strong arm who had a very solid career at NC State. Won quite a few games, broke most of the NC State passing records, had a very good career, led some big upsets, and is tall. Meets all the physical standpoints you want from a professional quarterback. He's 6'5", he's 225 pounds, strong arm, can see over the line. If this was 1990, he'd probably be the top quarterback in the class. But the game's changed. And where Ryan Finley struggles is consistency with his footwork. Ryan Finley uses too much of his arm, and he reminds me a lot of Ryan Mallett, the former Patriots backup, the former Ravens backup, drank himself out of the league, and became a problem to be in the locker room. Now, Ryan Finley doesn't have any of those problems because Ryan Finley, from what I've read, is one of the highest character dudes in college football. So that's good. You're getting another guy. So how do these middle round quarterbacks translate to the NFL? These guys translate to being low-end NFL starters and high-end NFL backups, which isn't a problem. That's a good career. You're going to get chances if you're these guys because you're going to be taken in the second, third, or fourth round, or the second, third, honestly, the late first, second, and third round because this league is quarterback hungry. So that gets me to the lower end. The lower end, the three quarterbacks I'm going to talk about are Jake Browning, Brett Ripien, and Jarrett Stidham. Stidham is very similar to Drew Lock with more issues with the intermediate accuracies. Very, very strong arm, but not the greatest inconsistency. He started his career at Baylor, Worked his way through. The whole scandal with Art Briles happened, and he transferred to Auburn. Then he played in the quarterback-friendly Gus Malzahn offense and struggled with intermediate throwing accuracy. Jarrett Stidham is not a great touch thrower and throws everything on a line or with velocity behind it. Not a great anticipation thrower either. The next quarterback I'm going to be talking about is four-year starter Jake Browning, who, like Drew Lock, another longtime starter, had a lot of ups and downs in college. He won Pac-12 championships, then he lost his starting job at the end of the season. He wins the starting job back, goes to a Rose Bowl. But throughout college, he didn't get better. And the Northern California native, the Northern California high school athlete, had a very long, record-breaking career with a high win percentage, but nothing special really stood out besides his all Pac-12 honors. Whatever. Him and the guy I'm about to talk about, Brett Ripien, are pretty much the same quarterback. Longtime starters, very low ceilings as throwers, but will be great in the locker room due to their experience in college and being a leader. Brett Ripien's the former quarterback of Boise State. Similar to Jake Browning, he's a longtime starter. Had some high highs and some low lows. Dominated the Mountain West Conference, but once he started playing Power 5 schools, he struggled a little bit due to limitations as a thrower. All three of these quarterbacks all project as career backups, and I think a very good pro comparison to him is the former Boise State quarterback Kellen Moore, where they don't have any of the physical tools to make it in the league, but because they're so football smart, Jake Browning and Brett Ripien will be just like Kellen Moore and find a spot on a game day roster. Jarrett Stidham, on the other hand, his pro comparisons fall with the Cardale Jones, the typical strong-armed backups that find a spot in the league due to their talent, intangible size, and all that stuff. So, now that I've given you the three tiers of quarterbacks, I'm going to talk about some draft diamonds at this position that I don't think are getting enough love. The first one I'm going to talk about is Kyle Kempt from Iowa State. He didn't get to finish off his year because he got hurt and the team started winning, and they went with the guy who's going to be best for their future. Kyle Kemp's a good quarterback, though. Kyle Kempt and Ryan Finley are pretty much clones of each other, but Ryan Finley has bigger hands, so that's why Ryan Finley will be a higher pick. Kyle Kempt didn't get to finish his career off on a strong note, but had a very good career in Ames, Iowa, and was the architect to some of the bigger upsets you saw in the Big 12. He was a big reason they were there in the end. The next quarterback I'm going to talk about is David Blough, the quarterback for Purdue. Led the upset against Ohio State. I saw him play in person a couple times. At his peak, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. At his low, he loses to teams like Minnesota. So that's not good. But what you're getting from David Blough is a strong-armed quarterback who has experience as a starter in a major conference and honestly might become a better pro than he was in college, which happens sometimes, and a lot of people don't realize that. And the last one I'm going to talk about is Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew, everyone's favorite quarterback last year. He was a graduate transfer to Washington State, played in that Mike Leach air raid offense. Went to Northwest Mississippi Community College after starting his career at East Carolina. He started his career at Northwest Mississippi Community College, went to East Carolina, then graduate transferred to Washington State. Well, this year he was the Alamo Bowl MVP. He put up an insane performance, and he threw for 3,500 yards, 31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and that extremely quarterback-friendly Mike Leach offense, the air raid. The air raid hasn't translated to the pros very well, and I think if anyone's going to take him, it'll be Cliff Kingsbury in a later round, in the second or third round, and he's going to compete with Josh Rosen and possibly Kirk Cousins, Josh Rosen out of town. Gardner Minshew brings a very positive attitude to playing football due to his small beginnings in his career, and I think those are the type of traits that are going to translate to him being the best late round diamond as a quarterback, late to mid round diamond, I guess. I could see him be taken in the 3rd or 4th round. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but like I said before, the game's changing. Right now, his low's Cody Kessler. His high, I don't know what I want to say here, because I'd want to say his high's probably around Alex Smith. But Alex Smith is a quarterback who can get you to 13-3 and into the playoffs and to an AFC championship. So that was my first draft position breakdown. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys got enough information in quickly. Honestly, I just want to give you guys some names you can talk about at a bar, research, and sound good to your friends. Here I am in conclusion. I did a public speech today. I'll probably post that on the internet, to be honest, on the line. I got to get ready to go for class. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at mbasementprod and at mbpints for the new Pints at the Round Table Twitter. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Follow me at ChrisRennie5. Follow the shows at mbasementprod. And follow Pints at the Round Table 1. Once again, thank you for listening. Hope you all have a good week. I will see you Friday with Pints at the Round Table. Adios, amigos.